Well, it's been a tough week, you could say, for New South Wales Labor leader Michael Daley. Have a look at what's been happening, picking fights with Asian communities, lobbing accusations at the SCG Trust.
Let me make it really clear for you. You said that under cover of darkness that the fire sprinklers were removed. You now know that not to be true. So considering we're just talking about some sprinklers, why don't you just acknowledge that what you said that day was wrong?
That's not a problem. If they say there were no fire sprinklers,
what did you say then?
Fine.
That's not a problem.
If they say there were no fire,
Ben, I was wrong. Why is it so hard to say I was wrong? Why is that so hard?
That's fine. If they say there were no fire sprinklers at the time and there weren't, then that's fine. I got it wrong. But what I said on the Alan Jones program,
it took a long time to get that out of you, but I'm glad you've admitted it.
Our young children will flee, and who are they being replaced with? They're being replaced by young children, young people from typically Asia with PhDs.
I've already said to the Chinese community that if I become the Premier, they'll be some of the first communities I talk to, and I'll be talking to the Chinese Consul General, and in fact Consuls General from all nationalities if I become the Premier.
And look, Gladys Berejiklian, she's out there doing stuff on the campaign trail too, but hard to get past all of that with Michael Daley and the political blowback we're seeing. Let's have tonight's Taking Stock with Greg Baxter, partner at Newgate Communications, and Claire Kimball, founder of The Squiz, and also former media advisor to Prime Minister Tony Abbott. Both of you knowing politics very well, though. Greg, you reckon this is a masterclass in what not to do?
It is, but it'll probably be all over tomorrow.
Okay.
Because I think these episodes that we've just seen don't have a very long shelf life. The sprinkler thing, I mean, come on.
It was
strange, wasn't it? That was so weird.
They've been ripping that stadium apart for months, and he's worried about the sprinklers. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't aware of the issue until I saw that interview. I'm like, what's...
No.
I mean...
Wait till they hear about the bar going.
I got the sprinklers wrong, but they've taken down the whole eastern side of the stadium.
Yeah. So what's he doing so wrong?
Well,
someone said, and going on to the comments about the Asians and,
Well, before we get on to the Asian thing, I think with the stadium thing, that interview was a very bad interview for him because he should have just dealt with the problem up front in relation to the sprinklers and then gone back to all of his messaging around why we don't need to spend $2.5 billion on stadiums while we still have, schools with demountables and hospitals with queues and so on and so forth, which has been his pitch all along. He needed to claw it back and retake control of the message in that interview, but for 7 minutes he didn't do that. That's why it was so bad. The only thing
7 full minutes he was sitting there not saying.
The only thing that I think is in his favour on this is that, looking around this afternoon, no other major media outlet has picked up that story and given it any prominence, right? Because I think they see it for what it is, which was one 2GB person trying to sort of
corner him and
have the fight for another one.
Yep.
Right? And so the issue for voters, I think, isn't about sprinklers. It's about, do we need the stadium? Should we spend $2.5 billion? And I don't think that issue goes away. The other one is more difficult, I think.
But just quickly, Claire, was someone advising him in the background, don't say you got it wrong? Like, why in that situation doesn't he just go, oh, yeah, I got it wrong, forget about the
I don't think it's
and go back to the messaging that...
Yeah. I mean... No, I don't think it's the advisors in the background. I think...
You can't always blame the advisors.
Well, they do, don't they?
All powerful.
They had their heads in their hand the whole time.
Yeah, that's right. But I think you corner these guys, particularly on those shows, with that combative nature of it. You just don't want to say the words they want you to say. I mean, he's saying, say you got it wrong, I got it wrong, I got it wrong, and he's like, I might not have got that right. So he got there eventually. 7 minutes later.
He almost got there, and then he let it drift, and he should have just absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
But Greg, you said that this is possibly going to be a short-lived issue for them, and they'll bounce back from it. But the election is so soon. Surely the timing of this is pretty horrible, really.
Well, I think the other story that we'll talk about in a minute around the comments about Asian immigration.
Yep. Go to it now.
That's much more, potentially much more damaging, I think, than sprinklers and stadiums. And again, if you look at that closely, you can see why he's defended himself in the way he has. But in this environment, in an election, final week of an election campaign, where everything's amplified and everything becomes very brittle, and that sort of nuance doesn't survive. So that's that's more troubling. Having said that, the government, you know, is reported to want to halve immigration in New South Wales in its next term of office. Is that racist? In fact, why isn't that an even bigger issue, potentially, than what he's accused of saying?
From what I understand, I mean, both sides are pretty bad at talking about the benefits of skilled migration when it comes to the economy.
Yeah. That's right, economically speaking, what it means.
I mean, historically, they're just bad at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've lost the art of convincing anyone about anything, particularly when it comes to bigger structural reforms and things that do actually require some kind of negative to it that you need to bring people along with you on. And I think the interesting thing with what's happened with Daley this week, Gladys just keeps on chugging along, like you said, doing stuff. She's just out and about, like she's done every day for the last couple of years. But Michael Daley and the Labor team, I think more broadly, have run an excellent campaign in terms of getting him from zero to here. And it's really interesting. I think this is the first big misstep, and we're a heartbeat away from voting. A lot of people have already voted. We know that. They've already done their online pre-polls, all of that. But to see him under pressure and have those couple of stumbles for a couple of days, I think is really interesting.
We've got to move on to a political message with massive cut through. That is the use of an egg. We've got to talk about this one because Ben Simmons, actually the NBA star from the Philadelphia 76ers, donned a pair of shoes that said Egg Boy on them during the team's game against Charlotte. So it's just it's gone absolutely massively international, this story. Of course, we're talking about Egg Boy, who hit Fraser Anning with an egg in the head, and now it's gone overseas to, we're seeing it there, gone overseas to Ben Simmons. What do you think about this one, Claire?
As a former press secretary standing next to a fairly high-profile person who people had very strong views about, the idea that someone could be coming at you regularly with an egg, because that's a thing these days, particularly with young people, is particularly terrifying. And I feel for anyone that has to confront that in the coming election campaign. I find it really hard to get worked up about this one, I have to say. I noticed with interest all sorts of views over Twitter, particularly over the weekend, about you can't attack politicians, that's just fundamentally wrong, and, you know, but this guy's a racist, you know, how do we deal with all of that? Look, these things happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen too much. I don't think it's should become a feature of our politics. No, but it's interesting that he seems to have captured a whole, you know, it's a bit of a zeitgeist.
This whole, he's a hero, he's Australia's latest, greatest icon that kind of goes across social media. No. But, I mean, that's what's on social media. And I have a bit of a problem with that because it's completely diverting the attention from the fact that 50, Muslims have been gunned to death.
Correct.
And we're going to take up, part of our media and our social media space calling this guy here. I mean, he's got $50,000 in crowdfunding. Which is, thankfully, he said he's going to donate. But I mean, I think it's been too dominant in the
fair enough,
the space in the aftermath. I don't like it.
Don't you think that what he's done though is because around the world, Fraser Anning's comments were getting picked up and getting published all over the world. People were commenting on them. But what this Egg Boy has done, he's provided a follow-up story that shows that not everyone in Australia actually follows that. This Fraser Anning, who is an elected representative of Australia, isn't really speaking for everyone. And we've got this funny little punchline to put at the end of Fraser Anning's comments.
Yeah, although which I saw Joe Hildebrand today called it a grotesquely cheerful sideshow to a dark and dangerous tragedy.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
I find it very difficult to disagree with that.
Nice. Yeah. I'm troubled by it because the only time that Australian politics seems to register offshore is when someone like Fraser Anning appears, or Barnaby Joyce tries to deport a couple of dogs, or somebody else wears a burqa into the Senate. I mean,
the extreme.
That's true. That is disappointing.
That's not good.
Yeah, that's true. We could probably take leadership on other big... I mean, Scott Morrison's trying...
at least Donald's got, North Korea and Iran to worry about.
Well, Scott Morrison's taking on the internet giant, the G20.
We're worried about Pistol Sue and
Pistol and Boo. God, I couldn't get enough of Pistol and Boo.
That was an incredible
Sorry.
There was...
that sideshow I did like.
There was an article at the start of this week in the LA Times by someone who had written quite extensively in Australia for Fairfax about how racist Australia is.
Right.
And you do see those things and you think, oh God, like... We're not that. I don't see us reflected in those comments, but that's what like you should say, gets the pickup.
It's like rugby league pre-season, writ larger.
Oh, that's a good point. And hasn't that been exciting?
Hasn't it?
I'm not sure that's the right word. Now, an NRL team, the Canterbury Crusaders, are considering a name change amid concerns over how it impacts the Muslim community. The name, chosen in the mid-1990s, refers to medieval holy wars waged by the Catholic Church to reclaim parts of what is now the Middle East. So you can see why this has become a big talking point in New Zealand, with people picking sides on whether they should change the name. Guys, do you think it's necessary? Is it a big deal to change the name?
I think it's a great idea, and I think the club, the management of the club has handled themselves really well. Both the chairman and the CEO and the coach, the way they've talked about this. They've acknowledged what everyone's acknowledged about the tragedy. They've said that all of us should be wrapping our support around those people right now. When time is right, we will look at this, we will consult widely, we'll make an informed decision. I think that's absolutely right. Now, we don't know what decision they're going to come to, but I suspect it will be very, very significantly informed by public opinion, in Christchurch in particular, and they will consult widely with the Muslim community. And I think it just says to me that they're very enlightened people.
Well handled.
Yeah. I hope they're the people, though, that get the say, the fans and the town, rather than any sort of pressure externally. Yeah. I'd probably have a different
Some kind of hashtag on social media or something.
Yeah, I just hope it's their club and it's their town. And
I don't think activists would get very far with your average Crusader supporter.
Really not.
Hey, I'm 5'2", what are you saying?
And I'd probably feel quite differently about it if this was a club of hundreds of years of heritage. It's only got, what, 20 or 30 or so since it's been in existence. So it's not like it's, you know, a turn of the century kind of thing from the 1900s.
They've all got silly names, these clubs. I mean, hurricane. When does the last time Wellington had a hurricane?
It's true. This is around the world we're talking silly names. So why would you bother having one that is offensive to some people? Why wouldn't you just pick something that is...
No one was thinking about medieval history when they named the Crusaders.
Yes.
No.
It probably felt like it was alliterative, and it probably felt fine.
Well, no, it goes...
back in 1995.
It goes to the English heritage of the town.
Right.
It's about Christchurch being a very English town.
Yeah. It is interesting, though. There are lots of different codes with lots of different names. I, for one, go for the Essendon Bombers in the AFL. I mean, that's one that you could argue has...
mentioned that
I mention it every single week, Brooke. Yes, it's true. But this is at least in context this time.
I didn't know that about you. I'm troubled. I'm very troubled.
Yeah, well, look, I thought I'd be able to sneak it in on point tonight, but no.
So the Bombers, you think, is...
Look, I wouldn't be that upset. This is the whole thing. They came up with that name in the 40s because they were near the Essendon airfields, and that was during the war, and the Bombers were a really good thing. Less of a good thing these days to be a Bomber. If they changed it, would I be totally up in arms? Absolutely not.
But they could go back to being the Dons.
Like the Dons or the same old. That's true.
Mind you, this is the guy that was debating the jumper and was so fiercely up in arms about the whole jumper Thor thing that was going on.
We're in Sydney. It's hard to get these conversations across.
You're talking about preserving it. I think that's absolutely vital.
Here goes the jumper
I agree.
discussion
See,
again.
Let's have more chats about this.
I like the Thor jumper, but I'm on the outside looking apparently. Claire Kimball, thank you so much. Greg Baxter, great to have you both here for taking stock.